testimony you'll give to the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. If you would, please state and spell your name for the record.
My name's David Griffith, David Griffeth.
And sir, what do you currently do for work?
I'm a technology consultant. I primarily manage public safety information technology stacks.
Okay. Before you did that, did you ever work for the Athens-Clarke County Police Department?
I did.
How long did you work for ACCPD?
I worked for ACCPD for just under 15 years, from November of 2004 until October of 2019.
Okay. And what was your title when you were with ACCPD?
I was a criminal analyst.
All right. Let's back up a little bit. And what did you study when you were in college?
Finance at the University of Georgia.
All right. Did you take a little break before you received your degree?
I did. I was in school at UGA from 89 to 93. During that time, I started a software company. And my senior year of college, I left school to pursue that software company. Sold the assets of that company in 2003 and went back and finished my last couple of classes to obtain the finance degree.
Yeah. Well, I just found this out now, but I think we were at UGA at the same time. I would have been a freshman and
yeah,
when you went back. But that software company, after you sold the assets of it, went back and got your degree, what were you doing after that?
I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just by chance ended up attending the Citizens Police Academy. I guess let me back up a little bit. I was in a church group. I made some offhanded comments about police officers to a buddy of mine that was a police officer in Athens-Clarke County. And he challenged my assumptions about law enforcement in the community and said I should attend the Citizens Police Academy. So I did. The Citizens Police Academy at the time, and I guess it probably still is, was a kind of a public outreach effort to bridge the gap between the community and law enforcement. And it was I think it was a 12-week course. One night a week you would go and some aspect of the department was presented to you and you would get to see the inside operations of the agency. During that Citizens Police Academy, the command staff asked me to apply for a position at the agency that they had open. It was the crime analyst position. And I thought, well, I'll apply, and they offered me a job, and I thought, well, maybe I'll do this for a couple of years, and a couple of years turned into 15 years.
Initially, when they brought you on, was your technology background an attraction to them?
It was. The chief at the time, Jack Lumpkin, was looking to modernize the police department's technology stacks, and so I could offer some expertise in that area.
The crime analyst field in general in law enforcement, kind of what stage of its development was it in when you started with ACCPD?
It was a very new position that a lot of agencies did not have at the time. Athens was kind of on the cutting edge. The best way to describe it was a specialized unit that was trying to figure out its way in law enforcement and what role it would play at the time.
In your work as a crime analyst, were you ever involved in any trainings?
I was. Over the course of 15 years, I had hundreds of hours of training as it relates to this trial. I was trained in all facets of intelligence analysts through the years, but specifically cold case homicide training. At the time I was hired in 2004, this case had languished a little bit, and they sent me to cold case training at at GBI headquarters. It was a cold case training put on by DHS and FLETC. That was a 40-hour course. And they also sent me to the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia to do cold case training there. That was another 48-hour homicide training course.
Okay.
And in addition to that, I think I went to Brunswick, Georgia, and did 40 hours of training with an NCIS.
Okay.
Did the homicide.
And so those were the trainings that you attended. Did you ever conduct trainings for any other crime analysts?
I did. Sometime shortly after the GBI training, FLETC approached me and asked if I would be an adjunct instructor for FLETC. FLETC is the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center down in, they've got multiple campuses, but the main campus is in Brunswick, Georgia. They train federal law enforcement across the nation. And so from 2007 to 2011, I was an adjunct instructor for FLETC and helped develop curriculum to train analysts across the nation.
At any time during your career with the Athens-Clarke County Police Department, were you assigned as a crime analyst to work on the murder of Tara Baker?
I was.
Okay. And if you recall, it's been a while, when do you think you first had contact with the case file?
Sometime in late 2005. I've got a very vivid memory of meeting the Baker family at the Arch on the 5th anniversary of Tara's death. So I know that in January of 2006, I was actively working on it.
Okay. Well, was there a detective at the Athens-Clarke County Police Department that when you first got the case file, you were working on it with in conjunction?
There were two, Sean Potter and Courtney Gale.
Okay. And can you describe for the jury how crime analysts work in conjunction with detectives? What's your role in that relationship?
So we were a support unit and that brought a specialized skill set to help analyze the case file. Our role was to help, at that time, the case file was very large. So multiple volumes of statements, supplementals, evidence. It would have been thousands of pages at that point. So my role was to review the case file, make an assessment of where we were, what avenues we might explore going forward, and to give a broad overview, synopsis of the case.
And so what kind of organizational condition was the case file in when you picked it up for the first time, or I guess we're assigned to it for the first time? I'm not sure you could pick the whole thing up.
No, you couldn't pick it up. It was literally multiple volumes locked away in the Criminal Investigations Division at the police department. So the case file at that time was what I would call analog. It was literally paper reports assembled in 3-ring binders. It was in good order. Lots of care had been taken to keep it in good order through the years. At that point, lots of investigators had worked on the case. My role was probably something like attorneys would get ready for a trial in court. I wanted to assemble a timeline of events so that we were sure we understood. Let me back up a little bit. When you've got a homicide investigation going on, this case had dozens of active investigators in the days immediately following the crime. There were investigators from the Athens-Clarke County Police Department, the University of Georgia Police Department, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They were all working collectively to gather information and put together this case file. So what happens is those agents and case investigators go out and conduct interviews, collect evidence, and they write reports about what they've discovered or found or collected, and they're assembled in this case file. So my role was to go through that case file and to assemble a common book of facts, chronology, the The software that we used to help assemble that knowledge was called Case Map. It's probably still used today. So that software labeled things like a cast of characters that would be the subjects that were part of the investigation, the witnesses, the persons of interest, the victims, the facts of the case, so the dates and times, the events that happened, the evidence that was involved in the case, so the trace evidence collected at the scene, all the evidence that you're going to talk about during the course of this trial.
At any point, did an opportunity come up to discuss this case with other law enforcement professionals?
On many occasions.
Right. That was an imprecise question. I'll try again. Did any of those occasions involve the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And so can you tell me what that event was?
So at some point in 2006, one of the avenues that we pursued was we submitted the Tara Baker case to the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. What that entails is we prepared a synopsis of what we knew about the crime and what had occurred and what we knew about the victim and the offender, and we transmitted that information to the specialized unit at the FBI. The FBI, after receiving that report, asked the agency to come present the case file for peer review in Quantico, Virginia. That was sometime in 2006.
Did you take advantage of that opportunity?
We did. Myself, Sergeant Courtney Gale, who was with the Athens-Clarke County Police Department, Jesse Maddox, who was a GBI agent. I believe he's probably the SAC in Athens at this time. Monica Bumgarner, who was also a GBI agent. She now works for the ATF. We traveled to Virginia to present the case.
Can you describe, what does that mean or look like to present the case at the FBI Cold Case Symposium?
I can. We were one of, I believe it was 8 agencies that presented cases. So basically, the investigators and analysts from these agencies come together and present their cold case in a roundtable type form. So we all sat around and discussed our cases, made a formal presentation, and then collectively we talked about what each agency could do to further its investigation in the case.
Okay. In preparation for that, what's the depth of, I guess, information and knowledge about the case that you're presenting that's necessary to be able to present at a symposium like that?
The expectation is that you'll be able to present every aspect of the case that's important to the investigation. So you would need to know the case from beginning to end, all the facts, all the chronology, all the people involved.
And obviously, I think you said that was, you believe, sometime in 2006. It's been, depending when in 2006, 19 or 20 years since then. Has your memory faded a little bit since then?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I probably have forgotten more than I recall about this case after 20 plus years of working on it.
It's a pretty large file.
It is.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you recall the name Chris Melton?
I do recall the name Chris Melton.
Okay. So did ACCPD investigate Mr. Melton after this crime occurred?
We did.
And did you have an opportunity to review that investigation?
Yes.
Okay. At any point, did Mr. Melton become, in your estimation as a crime analyst and being part of the continued investigation for a number of years, no longer a viable suspect in ACCPD's mind?
Chris Melton, of course, was a person of interest from the very beginning. If you looked at homicides in aggregate across the nation, more often than not, the offender in a homicide's known to the victim, and often it's somebody that's close to the victim, a significant other, boyfriend, spouse. So Chris Melton was a person of interest for the agency, very much so. The agency went to great lengths, I guess colloquially in the inner workings of the agency, that, you know, the investigators would say, we're trying to either put this person in or put them out of the case as a suspect. I don't know that anybody would say Chris Melton was absolved as a person of interest, but he was not. Let me back up. So the case investigators very diligently tried to put together a timeline of Chris Melton's actions the day before and the day that Tara's body was found. And that effort alleviated a lot of suspicion in the minds of the investigators that worked on the case. Collectively, the thought was Chris Melton is not at the top of the person of interest list. The timeline that the case investigators assembled related to his activities had him, and I'm working from memory here, had him at home the night before Tara's body was found. His parents
Say at home, where do you mean?
Well,
Yes.
Lack of personal knowledge. Hearsay.
All right. Hearsay objection. Mr. Yalamachili, any response?
Judge, I think Mr. Griffith has information, personal information about the timeline that was assembled by the agency. Obviously, the state will be calling witnesses to establish Mr. Melton's whereabouts at the time that this murder occurred. But I do believe that this witness has personal knowledge of the agency's timeline.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may continue.
So, Mr. Griffith, you were talking about the steps that the agency took in order to establish a timeline.
Right.
Can you talk a little more about what witnesses or were witnesses interviewed in order to establish that timeline?
sure. The agency interviewed Chris Melton, Chris Melton's parents, a coworker of Chris Melton's, I believe his name was Josh, and interviewed bank employees related to a banking transaction that occurred the day that Tara's body was found.
And so, and you said interviewed, was the timeline that the agency put together established that there were individuals who said Mr. Melton was with them during the time that Miss Baker was murdered?
Based on the collective statements of all of those people, it would have been virtually impossible without some magic technology to move you from here to 60 miles to the west for Chris Melton to have killed Tara Baker.
I don't have any other questions, Judge.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cruz.
Can you let the jury know what year Chris Melton's timeline was finally confirmed?
I would say it was 2000 and, well, I can't say what year it was definitive, not without looking at the supplementals, but it would have been early on in the investigation.
Yeah, sure. And this was based on an interview with Chris Melton. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And you just tell me if you agree or disagree. Mr. Melton said he started his morning at his parents' home at 7:15 a.m. Do you agree, disagree, don't know?
Do we have can I use the copy of the timeline that I brought with me?
May I see it? Is that okay? May I see it?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Questions open. Let me do this. Let's start this way, and I'll get back to Chris Melton.
Okay.
And thank you for allowing me to see this. Can I use this for a second? If you need
Sure.
it, I'll bring it to you. And the information in here is all information within your personal knowledge. Is that correct?
That's correct. I just understand that that document was prepared by me more than 20 years ago. So
That's fair. I want to talk about the mitochondrial DNA analysis. Okay. What I understand is on page 5 of 36 of your report, the cold case, FBI cold case form, it states a request has been made to have mitochondrial DNA analysis done on one Caucasian pubic hair, which has not matched any elimination hair submitted. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Do you know, you know that mitochondrial DNA test was completed. Is that correct?
I do.
Okay. And that pubic hair came back to match Mr. Chris Melton. Is that, well, excuse me. I said that wrong. That mitochondrial DNA test came back that it could not exclude Chris Melton as a contributor of that hair.
I don't know that that's accurate.
Okay.
I think my recollection is it matched a roommate. My recollection could be wrong though.
Sure.
There was a lot of hair involved in this.
Sure. Was seeing a copy of the mitochondrial DNA report refresh your recollection?
Surely, yeah.
Court's indulgence. All right, I'd like to show you. I'm going to mark as defense exhibit 32. And you're going to thank you for the 5 minutes.
You're welcome, sir.
Let the record reflect that I've already shown the state what has been marked as defense exhibit 32. May I approach you?
Absolutely.
I'd like you to look at, take your time, look over the entire document, but the particular page that I'm going to ask you about in regards to your response to my prior question is page 4, the first paragraph and the last sentence in the first paragraph of page 4.
And Your Honor, just to be clear, I understand this is being offered to refresh Mr. Griffith's recollection.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I got the first paragraph. What was the other part of the last page?
So the fourth paragraph on the last page. I'm sorry. The fourth paragraph on the last page in the, saying that wrong. Page 4.
Third paragraph.
Page 4, first paragraph, last sentence.
And Judge, I do believe the witness can just review whatever he would like out of the report that he believes would refresh his recollection.
I mean, I think that is correct. And
I don't disagree with that, John. I was trying to direct.
Okay.
Have you looked at it?
I have.
Okay. Is your recollection refreshed?
It is. So the hair. Yeah. So, all right. I'll let you ask a question.
Yes, sir. So in regards to the hair that was found on Miss Baker's buttocks, Chris Melton could not be excluded as a source of that hair. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so could not Ashley Hall.
So let me ask you this. We talked about his alibi, okay? And you mentioned in regards to his alibi that he was with a coworker. Do you recall saying that?
I do.
Okay. Did you obtain any employment contracts to ensure that those two worked together?
I did not.
Did you go to any place of employment that did you go to any place of employment that they may have worked on January 19th that confirmed that they were coworkers?
I did not. I did not personally interview Mr. Melton or the coworker.
Court's indulgence, Shona. Were you aware that Mr. McCourty and Chris Melton stayed less than a mile away from each other?
I have a recollection that they lived in close proximity to each other.
Okay. Were you aware that those gentlemen went to high school together?
I don't know that I was aware that they went to high school together.
Were you aware that Chris Melton left, were you aware that Josh McCourty drove Chris Melton to Athens?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that when Chris Melton gave his alibi to law enforcement, Josh McCourty left the police department?
I don't know that would have been relevant to any of my analysis.
Okay. The statement that you made is that Chris Melton's alibi has been confirmed. And I want to go through the steps that you all have taken as an agency to confirm his alibi. So as of right now, we've established that you did know that, or you may have known that Josh McCourty stayed less than a mile from Chris Melton, but you did not know that they went to high school together. We agreed on that fact, correct?
No, we don't agree on that fact. I may have known, it's been 20 years. I'm not going to remember all the details. I think I was doing good to pull up the first name Josh from memory, actually.
Yes, sir. But you told the jury on direct examination that you confirmed his coworker. Is that right?
That's my recollection, is that we interviewed his coworker, we interviewed his parents, we interviewed bank employees that were at the bank the morning he visited the bank. And that's how we came to put together the timeline of events surrounding Mr. Melton.
And I want to take it piece by piece, step by step, so the jury can understand what was done to verify this timeline. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. And please forgive I have to grab a couple of different things to go over that with you. So please.
Sure.
Would you agree that during ACCPD's investigation, you all were unable to speak with any supervisor that confirmed Josh and Chris were at Nash Plumbing between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on January 19th, 2001?
I can't say. I don't recollect.
Okay. And that would be a fact that and I know it's been 20 years. I'm just asking this to put it on the record. Would you agree that fact would be significant?
My recollection of Melton's timeline is essentially this. Josh showed up at his house. They drove to the bank to withdraw some money. They went to a truck to a company to have some work done on his truck, if I recollect. Those are all the details I can pull from memory off the top of my head.
Sure. So if you don't know, you could just say, I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
I think we've already agreed, but I asked just in case. You're unable to speak with any coworkers that confirmed Josh and Chris were at Nash Plumbing between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m.
I did not speak with any of Mr. Melton's coworkers, other than reading supplementals and putting together the timeline after the fact. I couldn't attest to what was said or not said or who was interviewed.
Sure. But to your knowledge, you wouldn't disagree that as you sit here at this time, that you don't know if that was done?
I don't know.
Would you agree that you don't know at this time whether or not ACCPD spoke to any receptionists that confirmed Josh and Chris were at Nash Plumbing between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on January 19, 2001?
I don't recollect.
Would you agree that as you sit here today, you don't know if ACCPD was able to speak with any eyewitnesses that confirmed Josh and Chris were at Nash Plumbing between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on January 19, 2001?
Can I have the report that I handed you back?
Absolutely.
Refresh my memory.
Now, I would ask you this. I've read the report. I know there's some language in the report. I would ask that, and just to let you know where I'm headed with these questions, I'm going to ask you very specific questions. And if you say that it's confirmed, I'm going to follow it with how. Is that fair?
Sure. Okay.
All right. So I believe the last question I asked you is, as you sit here today, you're unaware as to whether any any eyewitnesses confirmed that Josh and Chris were at Nash Plumbing between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on January 19, 2001.
Here's what I can definitively say about Nash Plumbing. Back in 2006, when I was reviewing the case supplementals and interviews related to this investigation, my note says that Chris Melton and Josh McCurdy visited Nash Plumbing from approximately 7:45 to 9 a.m. on the morning of the 19th. That was based on an interview that Billy Ricketts did on January the 19th, 2001 and January the 21st, 2001. I think the best source of information related to that interview would have to come from Mr. Ricketts or from the people that were the subject of his interview.
Sure. Can you repeat those times to the jury?
Sure. 7:45 a.m. to 9 a.m.
All right. So you were unaware that Josh McCourty told law enforcement that at 8 a.m. he was in Grayson at a house. Were you aware of that fact?
I can't say that I was or was not. I don't recollect.
Well, you spoke of Detective Ricketts' report. Would you like to see Detective Ricketts' report to refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Court's indulgence. I'd like the record reflect that I am showing, and please forgive me, officer. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Cruz. I represent Mr. Edrick Faust. It has been a long day.
David Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Please forgive me. Let the record reflect that I am showing the state Detective Ricketts report from January 21st, 2001. Let the record reflect that I am showing the witness Detective Ricketts report from, I said the date wrong. I need to correct the record. From January 20th, 2001.
Okay. So my notes list Ricketts' report from January the 19th and January the 21st. Okay.
And I'll give you all three. I'll give you the 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Okay.
And what I'll do to make it easiest, since we're talking about Josh, I want to start with Josh. Is that fair?
Sure.
All right. It's okay if I approach you?
Mhm.
All right. Mr. Griffith, I would like for you to read the second paragraph on that document, second paragraph, line number 4.
Okay.
You would agree that Josh McCourty stated at 8 a.m. he was in Grayson checking the house for leaks. Is that correct?
He said that they went to a house to check leaks.
At what time?
8 a.m.
But you just told this jury that from 7:45 to 9 a.m. they were at Nash Plumbing.
Well, the jury that I was, this is my recollection of what happened. It's based on these notes here.
Understood.
Right.
Will we agree at this
Well-
time that there's at least one error in the notes?
So, sir, this is a supplemental report written by a case agent. Hopefully at the time that we prepared this, we went back and listened to the interviews directly, but I can't recollect what we did 20 years ago. But the case synopsis that we took with us to the FBI in 2006, we collectively made the analytical determination that from 7:45 to 8 a.m., Melton was at Nash Plumbing.
So the time has changed from 7:45 to 9 a.m. to 7:45
I'm
to
sorry.
8 a.m.
From 7:45 to 9 a.m.
Excellent. May I approach?
Sure.
And just to make sure that we're clear on what we established that Josh said that he was in Grayson at 8 a.m. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what the supplemental report that I read says.
Okay. And the one that you mentioned that your notes were based off of, is that right?
No, my notes were based off reports from the 19th and the 21st.
Okay. So we'll go to the 19th. Showing the state Detective Ricketts' report from January 19th, 2001.
Mr. Cruz.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I guess no objection. I think that is Detective Ricketts' report from January 19th of 2001. I don't know that the witness has been asked an additional question that he has said he doesn't recall in order to refresh his recollection with this report, however.
Sure.
That's fair.
Sure. Chris Melton stated that they went to Grayson, Georgia after 9:30 a.m. Is that correct?
I don't know that I can say, I don't have a recollection of what Chris Melton said at this point 25 years later. I'm looking at the notes that are here in front of me to try to recollect, but I can't definitively say what Chris Melton said.
Would Detective Ricketts' January 19th, 2001 report refresh your recollection?
Possibly.
Okay. And I would like you to look at paragraph 2. sentence three, well, excuse me, the third sentence from the bottom to the bottom of the page. And let the record reflect that I'm showing the witness, Detective Ricketts, January 19, 2001 report.
Okay,
So Chris stated they were in Grayson at 9:30 a.m. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And just to make it clear for the jury, so Josh McCourty's alibi for him and Chris is at 8 a.m. We're in Grayson. Chris Melton's alibi for himself is at 9:30 a.m. We're in Grayson. Is that correct?
That's what we referenced the interview that Ricketts had. We probably listened to the interviews.
Officer, we've already talked about this. We've already agreed on this. We talked about this earlier. So you didn't tell me that the January 19, 2001 Ricketts report was the report that you
So
relied
we
on?
looked at the total collective case file back when we prepared this in 2006, which would have been the interviews. You know, if there were video or audio interviews, we would have reviewed those. We would read those supplemental reports. Our collective assessment was we felt like Chris Melton was nowhere near Athens, Georgia during those hours.
But officer,
Whether it's in Grayson or at Nash Plumbing, or it wasn't Fawn Drive in Athens, Georgia.
but you would agree with me, law enforcement officers don't go off feelings, they go off evidence. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not abnormal to take statements from different individuals and have time variations in their statements. You know, it's difficult for people to remember what they did yesterday.
Sure. What if they say they went to different places? Is that abnormal? Abnormal?
I don't think they say they went to different places. They collectively agree that they went to Grayson, right, to check a house for leaks.
Sure. So this is what I like to do. I like to show you the January 20th, 2001 report from Detective Ricketts, and I would like you to advise the jury of where Mr. McCourty said they went after leaving Nash Plumbing. Is that fair?
Well, and Judge, I am going to object to that. Refreshing recollection isn't handing Mr. Griffith a report and asking him to relay to the jury what the report says. Question needs to be whether or not the report refreshes and brings to mind independently a recollection of that event.
Any response, Mr.?
I agree.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Josh McCourty stated after leaving Nash Plumbing that him and Chris went to Chick-fil-A. Would you agree with that statement?
That's what the report said.
So Josh McCourty said they went to Chick-fil-A. Chris Melton said they went to Truck Customs. Would you agree?
I think they did both, probably.
Well, we'll get into that. We're going to get into that. But Chris's next stop was Truck Customs. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And Chris says that they were at Truck Customs around 9:30 or sooner.
That's possible. I don't remember, you know, what exactly his statement was.
Sure. Was seeing the report refresh your recollection?
All I'll be able to tell you is what that report says. So if that report says,
Well, officer, don't move the ball on me.
but what you need to recognize is that's a summary of an interview that was conducted with this individual, and it's a summary that's paraphrased. So that wouldn't have been the best evidence for us at the time. Looking at this case file, we would have listened to the interview. Hopefully, I don't recollect if Ricketts recorded it or not, but that was the expectation at the time, is that you would record your interviews. We would have listened to the recorded interview.
So I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page. So it's not Ricketts' reports that you relied upon. It was the recorded interviews that you relied upon.
So we looked at the totality of the case file when I started looking at this case, which included audio recordings, video recordings, supplemental reports that case agents and investigators wrote. The totality of the case file as it was when we picked it up in 2005.
Sure. So I asked you a couple of questions. If you don't remember, we'll play the audio recording for you. Is that fair?
Okay.
And Judge, I mean, I am going to object. I think the witness has testified that all this will do is give him an opportunity to say what is in the report or what is in the recording, not develop an independent recollection of his own. I think that was his testimony the last time that a report or anything else was offered to him. So I'm going to object to that. Detective Ricketts I anticipate is going to testify in this trial. So I'm going to object at this point to using cross-examination as a method to just read in portions of a police report.
May I respond?
Of course.
The state opened the door to this line of cross-examination. This witness, nowhere in the discovery file, mentioned a statement that we confirmed Chris Melton's. Let me rephrase that. The anticipated testimony for this witness based on the state's discovery file had nothing to do with confirmation of Chris Melton's alibi or non-confirmation of Chris Melton's alibi. When the state elicited an answer from him stating that we confirmed Chris Melton's alibi, it would be impossible for Chris Melton to be in Athens at the time, and he relied on these reports in making that decision. The state opened the door to this line of cross-examination. That's one, but I think that misses the issue of the state's objection. In regards to the state's objection, Mr. Griffin stated that he relied on these reports as well as the recorded audio and coming to his decision, Your Honor.
So let me ask you this question, Mr. Cruz. What is it that you're trying to do right now?
Confront the statement that he made that Chris Melton's alibi was confirmed. It was not, Your Honor. We have the evidence to show that.
I'm going to sustain the objection and ask you to move on.
Yes, ma'am. Officer, I have no more questions for you.
Okay.
Any redirect, Mr. Yalaman-Chile, of this witness?
I just want to clarify because there were a couple questions that Mr. Cruz asked you that I think the tail end of your answer may have been cut off. Just want to clarify a couple things. Mr. Cruz asked you if Josh McCurdy said.
Objection, Your Honor. You just stated that we could not go down that line of questioning, so I would ask that the same restriction is placed upon the state.
Okay, well, that's not exactly what I said, but what is your specific objection?
Relevant, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Yalaman-Chile, how is that relevant?
I'm simply asking the witness to clarify the answers he gave to two questions that Mr. Cruz directly asked him.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Cruz, based on that?
I would just simply ask the same restriction that's placed on us, that we can't get into that with this witness. I would ask that the same restriction is placed on the state. As I mentioned, Your Honor, they opened the door to this line of questioning. I was confronting the answer. If I can't ask about it, and I stopped as soon as he made his objection on the court stated that I couldn't ask those questions. I would ask the state not to make, let me rephrase that. I would ask that the state is the same restriction are placed on the state that's placed on the defense at this moment.
And if I,
that line of questioning.
if I could respond briefly.
You may, sir.
This is a question that Mr. Cruz did ask and received a response to with no objection. So I don't understand that argument. And I believe it is something that's proper and redirect to ask about specific responses to questions asked on cross-examination and the answers that were admitted in front of the jury.
All right. Yes, sir.
He's just trying to skirt around the honorable court's ruling. Your Honor has made it clear that that line of questioning is not appropriate for this witness. If he didn't object to it, he can't open the door, allow the questions, object. The honorable court says, no, those questions are not allowed. And then get up and follow up on the questions that I understand the honorable court is saying are improper for this witness. So I would ask that the state not be allowed to ask those type of questions.
All right. Thank you. All right. So with regard to the actual objection, I think, Mr. Cruz, you're misstating what the court did. I have said this before. The use of the word restriction is not appropriate. The court made a ruling based upon the law and the analysis of the objection and what it entailed. It is not actually called a restriction. The state made an objection, the court ruled on it, and I sustained that objection. With regard to this particular moment, the state is asking to redirect based upon two questions that the defense asked that were permissible. I'm going to allow it. You may proceed.
So I want to start first with a question that was asked to you. I think Mr. Cruz asked you a question of Mr. McCurdy said he was in Grayson at 8 a.m., I believe was the question. Your answer said they were. What do you mean by they?
So, Josh McCurdy said that that's what the supplemental report said, they. So, I think the best way to, let's back up and talk about what I know. Collectively at the time we were reviewing all of the interviews that had taken place previously in this case, where we looked at Josh's statement, Chris's statement, the parent's statement. Collectively, they all put Mr. Melton to the west, way out of Athens, Georgia. There may not have been perfect agreement in the minute-by-minute recollections of where people were, but at the end of the day, there were multiple people that put Chris Melton over at his home, near his parents' home.
Well, and I'm sorry, and I just want to stop you because I think I might have asked my question poorly.
Okay.
But
Hang on one second, Mr. Elementary. I think Mr. Cruz has an objection before you continue. Go ahead, sir.
The state has opened the door again, and I would ask for the opportunity to cross-examine this witness on the statement that the witness just made before the jury.
You will certainly get the opportunity to cross-examine. I don't know. I'm not going to respond to the opening the door at the moment. I don't know that that's necessarily an objection. But if you need to recross this witness, you certainly may do so. Go ahead, Mr. Yamamoto.
And I'm sorry, I'll ask it more precisely. They is a plural pronoun, correct?
I take that to mean, based on my collective knowledge of the case, that Josh and Chris.
Okay, that was my only question. And I'm sorry, I should have asked it in a more precise manner that way. Mr. Cruz asked you about some mitochondrial DNA results, and he said this result indicated that Chris Melton could not be excluded in the report. And your answer referenced one other person in addition to Chris Melton. Who were the people who could not be excluded as contributors of that hair?
One of Tara Baker's roommates and Chris Melton.
Okay.
I believe it was Ashley Hall.
That's it, Judge. Just those two questions.
Recross, Mr. Cruz.
Absolutely, Your Honor. And I just want to follow up on a specific question that the state asked you. He asked you what did, he stated that on cross-examination, I said he, you said they, and they means Chris and Josh. Is that correct?
That's how I took it.
Okay, that's fair. And then he asked you about the timing of being in Grayson at 8 a.m. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a different question from what I asked you before. Chris Melton stated that he was at Nash Plumbing at 7:45. Is that right?
I believe that's correct. Yeah. So my notes say that, and this is a case summary that was presented to a bunch of investigators at the FBI, right? We believe, based on the totality of the interviews that we listened to, the case supplemental reports that we read, that Chris Melton was not in Athens, Georgia. He was over near Nash Plumbing.
But officer, you already said that you all didn't confirm, or you're not aware of you all confirming Chris being at Nash Plumbing.
That's not what I said. I said I couldn't confirm, but I'm looking at this case file multiple years down the road, looking back at interviews that were done in 2001. As I sit here today, 20 plus years later, I may not recollect accurately what we looked at 20 years ago. But my understanding of the case is we felt collectively at the time that Chris Melton was not that it would not have been possible for him to have been in Athens, Georgia, and killed Tara Baker.
Okay. And that was based on, I think we agreed, just you all's collective feeling. Is that correct?
No, not our collective feeling, our collective review of all the evidence that had been collected to date.
So let's talk about the evidence. You would agree that law enforcement spoke to Chris Melton's parents 4 months after Ms. Baker's death?
I couldn't tell you when they spoke to them. Here, 20 years later, I don't know what day they spoke to his parents.
Mr. Griffin, we can't have it both ways. We can't say we're sure that we confirmed Chris Melton is away from Athens, Georgia, and then when we asked about the specific.
I don't think those are my words.
Hold on. I'd ask that Mr. Cruz ask questions to the witness, not make comments about the witness's response.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yes,
Ask a question, Mr. Cruz.
yes, ma'am. But you would agree that I believe it was, I won't even say the date, but in May of 2001, law enforcement went to interview Chris Melton's parents regarding his alibi for the first time.
I cannot tell you when they went to interview them for the first time. Sitting here today in 2026.
That is fair. Did you look at any report that discussed when they went to interview?
I'm sure I did.
Okay. Would seeing that report refresh your recollection?
All I would be able to do is read back the report to you at this point. And that, I'm not trying to be belligerent or difficult. I can't tell you, what we did 20 years ago to a certain date.
But officer, you just told the jury what you all did 20 years ago. We just want to understand the foundation of it. Is that fair?
Object again, Judge. Mr. Cruz is to ask the witness questions, not make comments about the witness's responses. So I would object to the form of the question.
That's correct. Mr. Cruz, ask a question if you want to.
I do want to, Your Honor.
And go ahead.
Please forgive me. And I'll say, please forgive me, Mr. Griffin. Let's take it step by step, okay? You relied on Detective Ricketts' January 19th and January 21st report. Is that fair to say?
Asked and answered.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Is that fair to say?
Yes. And the only reason I can say that is because I have it in my notes that's what we relied on.
Okay, excellent. And we've agreed that from 7:30 to 7:45, Chris Melton stated that he was at Nash Plumbing.
My notes say that from 7:45 to 9 a.m., Chris and Josh McCurdy were at Nash Plumbing. And that, this is a summary of a lot of interview that took place. So as I sit here today, all I can tell you is we didn't believe they were in Athens, Georgia. Now the best way would be talk to Chris Melton.
Well,
right? And Josh McCurdy.
Well, I just want to follow up on your statement. So let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that we shouldn't, and this is the best way I can frame it, so please forgive me. Based on our conversation here today, your report may not be the best place, your report may not be what we need to trust in determining whether or where Chris Melton was on that date. Is that fair?
We started out talking about what my recollection and understanding of the case file was, and my analytical assessment in 2006, and still to this day, is that Chris Melton was not in Athens, Georgia, and that's based on all the testimony of the people that we've talked about.
And that's Josh McCurdy, correct? Chris Melton,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris Melton's
You could say yes or no, please, sir.
Yes, yes, and bank employees at a bank. I want to say it was a Wachovia, but off the top of my head, I can't be certain.
You would agree with me that Chris Melton wasn't at the Wachovia until 9:08 a.m. Is that correct?
I don't know for certain.
But you spoke to 4 people. Is that right?
No, more than 4 people.
Okay, so it's no longer Josh McCurdy, mom and dad, Chris Melton, and bank employees. Who else did you speak with?
My recollection is we spoke to Chris Melton, Josh McCurdy, Chris's mom and dad, and 2 bank employees.
So for the purposes of this conversation, we'll take the bank employees out of it. You and I have agreed upon that you didn't know that Josh and Chris went to school together. Is that right? We've agreed on that.
No, we haven't agreed on that. I don't remember if I knew that or not. Right now, as I sit here, I don't recollect.
Did you note it in your report?
Not in the report that's in front of me, no.
Okay. And
I'm not sure why it's relevant. What does that have to do with anything that we're talking about?
well, we could talk about it after court, but as of right now, the Honorable Court has said I only can ask questions. So can you answer that question for me, officer?
What's that?
The question is it in your report that Josh and Chris went to school together?
No, and I don't believe that I would have included it in my report if I'd known it.
So your report does not include all the details relevant to this case. Is that fair?
I think it includes the key details that were important to our investigation at the time that I prepared it.
But officer, you told the jury that Josh and Chris were employees. Would you agree that that gives a different significance from high school classmates? I'll say that.
Absolutely. The totality of the relationships between all the people involved are for the jury to weigh. Absolutely.
And were you aware that Chris Melton was his parents' only child?
I believe I was.
And is it fair to say, do you have children, officer?
I do. Yeah. And parents will do a lot for a child.
I don't even have to ask my next question then, officer. In regards to Nash Plumbing, that's really what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the Nash Plumbing. I want to make sure that we're on the same page. We've gone from, I believe, and correct me because I think I'm going to say this wrong. We've gone from 7, I'll say this. Give me the times that you state Chris is at Nash Plumbing.
So on this timeline, we have from 7:45 a.m. to 9 a.m.
At Nash Plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've established that Josh McCourty said at 8 a.m. they were in Grayson, Georgia.
Right.
Okay. And we've also established that Chris Melton said after 9:30 a.m. they were in Grayson, Georgia.
Right.
Okay. So you'd agree this is one contradiction in the alibi.
And like I said before, there are going to be contradictions when people are trying to recollect
Sure.
minute by minute.
That is fair.
History, right?
That is fair. Would you agree that after leaving Nash Plumbing, Chris Melton stated that they went to...
I think it was Truck Customs.
Correct. However, Josh McCourty stated they went to Chick-fil-A. Is that correct?
That's what the supplemental report has in it. Yeah.
Sure. And this is a question I want to ask you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You would agree that Josh McCourty was asked if he went to the bank with Chris Melton. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I feel certain that was a question that was asked of him.
Okay. And Mr. McCourty said he didn't remember.
I don't recollect what I can't tell you what he said.
Would he in the recording refresh your recollection?
The same objection as before, Your Honor. This witness has indicated repeatedly that all the reports or recording would do would prompt him to say what is in the report or recording because he didn't interview. Anyway.
Sustained.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Court's indulgence. Chris stated that they went to, well, excuse me. Do you recall Chris stating that they went to Forsyth and met with a contractor named Mike? Do you remember that?
I don't remember those details.
Okay. Do you remember anyone at ACCPD ever speaking to a contractor named Mike that could confirm that Chris was in Forsyth?
I can't say with certainty whether or not a contractor in Forsyth was spoken to.
Okay. And I ask you this, and I'll let this probably be my final question. When it comes to the questions I asked you, there's no certainty, but you'd agree when the state asked you if Chris...
Object to that question. It's argumentative.
Sustained.
Is it fair to say we aren't... Outside of the 3 individuals you spoke to, excluding the bank, is it fair to say we don't have any other evidence of where Chris Melton was between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on January 19, 2001?
Mr. Cruz, what I can tell you with certainty is that as I sit here today in 2026, my assessment of Chris Melton's timeline in 2001 as an investigative analyst that's investigated hundreds of violent crimes is that Chris Melton has substantial testimony from other people that puts him away from Athens, Georgia at the time Tara Baker was killed. And our assessment in the analytical unit at the Athens Clarke County Police Department was that Chris Melton could not have killed Tara Baker.
That's based on those.
That's based on the totality review of the case file at the time that we looked at it in 2005. And that's what we presented in Quantico, Virginia at the FBI Academy.
Sure. And even the FBI advised you all to investigate Chris Melton's hard drive. Is that correct?
I recollect that there was a suggestion to look at his hard drive and an email from Christine DePoyster. I don't know that Chris Melton had a hard drive to look at.
Well, this is what I follow up with. If ACCPD was so certain that Chris Melton was away from Athens, why would the FBI request or instruct you all to look at his hard drive?
It goes back to something I said before. We did not eliminate Chris Melton as a person of interest. He was not at the top of our list of persons of interest. So, from an analytical standpoint, we had to look at, could we absolutely eliminate him? I would not absolutely eliminate my mother from the crime. If somebody came and said that my mom could possibly have been involved, but it made it, the totality of the statements that we reviewed made it seem very implausible that Chris Melton was in Athens, Georgia at the time Tara Baker was killed. Now, if you presented some significant evidence, if Chris Melton was seen on video in the neighborhood with a timestamp of 8 a.m. on January the 19th in 2001, that might change my assessment. But
can I ask you this?
Sure.
You'd agree that Mr. Faust wasn't seen on video at 8 a.m. in the neighborhood. Is that correct?
I didn't say he was, but I was talking about what might change my mind. Now, if we saw a video of Mr. Faust in the neighborhood, that would be a clue, right?
But you also didn't see any video of Deer Park. Is that right?
I don't think I saw any video from Deer Park.
And outside of the bank, so we're not talking about the bank. We're going to assume that the bank is at 9:08. Between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., you all didn't collect any video where Chris Melton was located. Is that correct?
The only video that I recollect being collected, or I don't think it was collected, I think it was seen, was Chris Melton in a bank.
That's fair. And to conclude my questions for you, FBI stated search the hard drive. That wasn't done, was it?
I don't believe there was a hard drive to be searched.
So that's a no?
I cannot say with certainty that we didn't search a hard drive as I sit here today, but I do not have any recollection of searching a hard drive.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for answering my questions, Your Honor. Those are my questions for this witness.
Any redirect, Mr. Yalamanchili?
No, Judge.
May this witness be excused. Mr. Yalamanchili, may the witness be excused.
Judge.
Any objection from Mr. Cruz?